Welcome. My name's Guy Dauncey, and this is the show called Change the World, where we look at big, bold ideas that are going to make a difference on our planet. For my goodness, we need to do some making of difference to find our way through the multiple problems that seem to be coming at us all the time. My guest today is Ian Gartshore. Ian is a local therapeutic counselor. You're a marriage and family therapist with Shore Wellness Solutions, but that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about transportation, because you've also been a leader in Nanaimo around energy conservation, around zero waste, around community solar, cycling, car sharing, co-housing, transit. And so I'm hoping you're going to share with us a vision of how the future of transportation can be in Nanaimo. Kick it off.
All right, thank you very much, Guy. I'm very pleased to be asked to be here. And great to have this vision to see what is possible, because I hear a lot of people say, well, I don't want to just hear complaints, I want to hear solutions.
Yes.
And that's what you are doing here.
Yes.
So that's marvelous. So transportation, I want you to imagine for a moment arriving by fast foot ferry into the heart of downtown in what is now just old industrial land that's basically being used for very little.
Yep.
And you get into a transportation hub, and from there you are taken to where you want to go. Well, today you want to go to the north end of Nanaimo, where we are situated currently. There is a trolley or tram bus or trolley right there, and it's now going to take you up the Terminal Avenue on a pretty rapid trip all the way up to a hub at the north end. And then from there, there are going to be small feeder buses, and you're going to be able to get to your home or work or whatever it is you're going to do, or get right here to Shaw Terminal in very little time. Actually, you'll do it in about half an hour at the most.
Right.
That would be a fabulous way to do it, and you're going to pay about $3 for the privilege of making it from there to there, plus, of course, coming in from
And if I'm coming
Vancouver.
in and if I wanted to take a bicycle, would there be a bicycle share arrangement at that transportation hub as well down there?
Of course, because it's going to be some housing and some businesses, maybe light industrial down there, but it's going to be basically a cultural community in that hub that's going to have all kinds of transportation. There'll be buses, there'll be tram, there'll be bicycles, there'll be some car share co-op cars there, but not a huge parking lot.
So you're thinking the area around where the Gabriola ferry leaves, that kind of area?
Just a little bit south of that, the industrial lands that there's the rail link that goes to out to sea there. That area is now being looked at with different possibilities.
Yeah. So I've got a bunch of images around transportation in general, which will start from the walking and we'll go right through to the global level.
Okay.
And the first one to come up actually is back from the late 1700s, or the first hot air balloon going up. I mean, this is just for fun, really. The concept of people who've only ever traveled on foot or by horse, or in the stagecoach, suddenly going up by this, what do you think people were feeling when they first had this revolution in transport?
Can't imagine.
Long
I'm
before
sure
the
there'll be
planes.
lots of fear,
Yes.
because
Some of them died, I think.
yes, well, lots of people die in every mode of transportation, but it was new, and of course something that's new is scary, so a lot of people will say, oh, but then they get up there and the exhilaration of seeing that amazing area.
I mean, people have never even been above the treetops to see down before. It's just and this was during the Enlightenment, before the French Revolution, when all this stuff was bubbling and all the excitement of change was in the air, right? So coming to change, I'm going to go from the sublime down to the pedestrian, which is walking. Where does walking fit into your vision of transport? This is it could be a town center anywhere in Cleveland, actually. This is where they've taken what was a regular street full of cars and made it fully pedestrianized.
So imagine Commercial Street downtown Nanaimo.
Yes.
Right now I hear complaints that the parking, there's now have to pay to park your vehicle down there.
Yeah.
About 25 up to 25% of the surface of downtown can be streets.
Yeah.
Complete waste of asphalt and space.
Yeah.
To have people walking that, to have it completely dedicated to walking, plus emergency vehicles, plus delivery vehicles and all that kind of stuff, but basically all very slow speed, and cyclists all mixing in that area.
Yeah.
Lots of people will say, oh, well, the store owners, Guy, if you did that, Ian, if you did that, nobody's going to come down here.
But throughout Europe, they're doing it and the shops aren't dying.
And downtown Vancouver, when they did that, the shops actually did way better.
Yeah.
They put a subway through into there, and shops were very bad shape during that time, but now they're doing way, way better. So why can't we do that on Commercial Street? Why not have dedicated walking paths to downtown and throughout the whole of the city?
Yeah.
If we have all this money to pay on widening roads and widening bridges, the biggest project in Nanaimo so far has been 1 kilometer of widening roads for Bowen Road. If that money were instead put into exactly what you're saying here, a lot more people would be walking.
Well, it's the oldest thing. I mean, our ancestors walked around the whole planet on these legs. Clearly the legs are designed for walking and running. We can do it, right?
Yep.
But also, when you have a really great environment, you can do people watching. You can see all the stuff that's going on. You can have sculpture, you can have flowers, you can have art, and it becomes a real fun thing to do. And you bump into friends.
Yep.
I never bumped into a friend while driving a car.
No, well, if you did, then it was probably called an accident. No, actually, for the Zero Waste Conference we had a couple of years ago, I bumped into somebody on her bike while I was on my bike.
Yeah.
And we saw each other, and we started talking, and she got involved and made the day for that project, for that event.
There you go.
That wouldn't have happened if I was in a car.
Right. So from walking, we're going to cycling. And this is an amusing image when it comes up. It's actually a very 1884 electric tricycle.
That's amazing.
So they were using, I mean, now electric bikes are coming back, and as people get older and older, we're going to move from bicycles to tricycles. I just wanted to throw that in for the fun of it. So now we have, this is a downtown Vancouver bike lane. Talk me through what's happening here.
So here we have still some motor vehicles,
Yes.
but you notice that they're not occupying the entire space.
Yep.
In fact, they're only part of the space. The cyclists, which require way less space per person, considerably less, now have the dedicated cycle lanes. People who have the experience of being on those lanes feel safe.
Totally.
And there's nothing that stops people more, other than really bad weather like the snow and ice, than feeling unsafe. When we separate those, when we don't have car doors dooring people, then folks get out there on their bicycles in a big way.
But what I notice when I see similar images in Europe, the cyclists aren't even wearing helmets anymore because there's no risk of being hit by a car. Right. Here's another one from, I think it's Hornby Street in Vancouver. It's just another way of separating the cyclists.
Yep, and you notice that there is an actual separation there with greenery.
Yeah.
Whoa, greenery. This is more like pleasant.
Yeah, and that's probably not expensive to put in place.
It's not expensive at all compared to forever adding more and more lanes. I think about what many cities like Victoria and other places are trying to do is add more lanes to take care of all that traffic. Well, stop adding the lanes, start putting those kind of lanes in.
I was in China in the 1980s when it was bicycles everywhere. Now it's got crazy cars everywhere. But I hear they're looking at the mathematics, like one in, the number of Chinese who don't have a car and the roads, and they're thinking this is impossible. So they want to get back on the bicycle, right? So then the next image comes up is around sharing bicycles. So that you have a pool of bicycles like this and anyone can pick up and go wherever you want to.
Yeah, you can use your credit card if you have an account, you can do all kinds of things with that.
Yeah.
The neat thing about bicycles too is that when you design your infrastructure for that, then you have places where you can park your bicycle. When I came to the studio here, which is not saying bad things about this place, but when this place was built, Shaw Studios, they didn't think of bicycles. In Europe, they're now thinking of bicycles. Right. In Montreal, they're thinking of bicycles. Yeah. Here in Nanaimo, it's just beginning to happen that if you build a building, you create a space for those bicycles. When you think that way, when you stop thinking about just the car, about bicycles, then it becomes way easier.
So we take bicycles one step further. Now we have an electric bicycle taxi. This is Mexico City, but it could equally well be in Nanaimo.
Absolutely.
Because the secret about electric bikes is hills, right? Hills disappear.
Yes.
Nanaimo's got hills. Have you been on an electric bike yourself?
Yes, I was, and it was quite a lot of fun because I passed a poor fellow who's just on a pedal bicycle, and he said, "You're cheating," and I said, "I'm proud of it." And I'm getting older. I get around by bicycle. It's how I got here today.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people who have trouble with the hills, it's a great solution.
Huge change, right?
As long as they keep on cycling, because people who actually pedal are in way better shape than those who don't.
But you can pedal on the flat, and you come to the hill, you add that drive on. It's just, getting you up. And then this is an extreme example of a cargo bicycle.
Yep, I've moved somebody with one of
Right.
those.
This doesn't actually have electric, but Tony Hoare in Mill Bay, who makes these trailers, now has them electric on the trailer, so the trailer actually pushes the bike.
Ah, okay.
And the electricity, it costs so little for the transportation. I think I read in Copenhagen, they have 40,000 cargo bikes like this in the city.
Well, you
Really-
think,
really
you
making a
compare some
difference.
different, I've got a little few stats here
Yeah.
for you. So in Canada and the United States, what percentage of trips are done by bicycle? It's about 1% in North
Whoa.
America.
Yeah.
If you go to Finland, it's about 9%, Sweden, same thing, Germany's about 10, Denmark is 18, and the Netherlands, 26% of all trips
That's
are
amazing.
done by bicycle
Yeah.
because the infrastructure is there.
Yeah, well in Denmark I know for major commute trips and get to school trips, it's up to 40% now.
Yeah.
In Copenhagen itself, not the country as a whole, right?
Yep.
So moving on then, this is now we're getting to the future of cars. This is an electric car plugging in, it's a Nissan Leaf. Is this the way all cars are going to go? How long do you think it'll be till we have electric cars everywhere?
Electric cars that are self-driving.
Oh,
And so when they're self-driving, Guy, we're not going to need nearly as many vehicles, because if I can just order up a car that comes and picks me up and takes me to my destination, then we can do with only about a quarter of the cars that we have on the road. And if they're electrified, the only challenge is getting them charged up fast enough so it can go to the next
right.
trip.
Do you trust the automatic car?
Do I trust that we're going to stay alive with the way we're doing it right now? Do I trust that we are going to
Yeah, but there's
continue
two
to have
things.
so many
There's
accidents?
an electric car can be fully charged on solar and wind,
Yep.
and therefore not impacting the planet.
Oh,
But to go to
oh.
self-driving is
Wait a
purely...
minute. Wait a minute. What do you mean it's not impacting?
well, solar and wind energy are coming in their renewable energy. They're part of nature.
Absolutely. So where does the metal come from? How's the vehicle manufactured?
yeah.
Where are the batteries made? So there
But
are always
that
costs.
applies to self-driving cars as well. All those issues arise.
So we're so dependent on cars, that's what we think about. It's very easy to
Yeah.
do that. And I think we're going to need cars always in the future.
Yeah.
And I do know that there is an island, I forget the name of it, in the United States, believe it or not, in the Detroit area, I think it is. It's an island, no cars except for emergency vehicles
Yeah.
there. They do everything by other modes of transportation.
Yeah.
They are much more fit, they are much happier people, they actually get along with each other, they're much more socially connected. And so the car is a helpful thing. I'm not trying to say boo to it
Yeah.
all. And I understand that electric cars are a way
Yeah.
forward. They're way better than gasoline
Yeah.
and diesel. And I don't think that they're the solution.
Okay. Well, this is still electric car, but this is a car sharing now.
Yep. Which I helped to bring to Nanaimo, car
Yes.
sharing, because for every car share that we have, by the way, most people don't know what car sharing.
Explain
means,
it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I go and get the car and I go and do my errands and bring it back, and somebody else in the neighborhood grabs the car and they go and do their errands. It goes to work or whatever.
Yeah.
As long as you're not using the car more than a few times a week,
Right.
it actually costs me way less.
And you don't own the car, so you haven't got to think about insurance and all that repairs and
Collectively,
servicing.
we own the car. It's like a family car.
Okay.
And so, and I know you brought car sharing to
Yeah.
Victoria, so
Yeah.
it's a great idea. What it does is it greatly reduces the number of vehicles and greatly reduces the amount of expenses,
Yeah.
because you and I as members now share the insurance, the
Right.
the gas, the maintenance costs, all those kinds of things are
Yeah.
all now taken care of communally, like
And
the
there's,
family.
and there's fewer cars on the roads because you're using other means of transport as well?
So people who use car shares are more likely to bicycle, to
Yeah.
get around by bus, by carpooling with other people, and walking.
So let's go on to transport. This is it's an electric bus from China. They have 80,000 electric buses on the road in China. This is a long-range electric bus. I don't know how far it goes, but I know there was one bus in Australia, fully electric, does 500 kilometers on one charge when it's full of passengers. So
That's pretty
it's
amazing.
moving very fast, this revolution.
Absolutely. We
Yeah.
are just seeing the beginning of it, and it's just going to
Yeah.
take off like a rocket.
And when you go to Europe, there's electronic timetables on the bus stops. So you come to Vancouver Island, it feels like you're stuck in the 1940s almost sometimes.
Yes, we are very stuck. People don't realize, I mean, your viewers are going to say China's doing this, but China is into putting all these coal-fired power plants.
They're
aren't
also working really fast on this because they've got this incredible smog problem, air pollution. Everyone's going around with masks. And so they know they've got to change.
Yep, and it's costing them. They're
Yeah.
realizing it costs their economy, it costs all
Yeah.
kinds of things.
So then this is Portland, a regular streetcar. Where does this kind of thing fit into? your vision for the future as well?
Absolutely. Well, streetcars or some way of quickly moving people around are absolutely a necessity. Because, Guy, people want to get there in a reasonable time.
Yeah.
They want to get there safely. They don't want to charge too much. And if they can read a newspaper or visit with a neighbor or whatever, or have a little snooze, it's all good. When
and
people
it's just jump on, jump off, right?
If you have a system that's all figured out, all so that it's intermodal, that is, you go from one system to another system seamlessly with the same ticket, with the same pass, then there are no hassles.
Yeah.
So I think about a place like Curitiba, which is in Brazil, much bigger city, of course, than any of our cities here in Canada, or even in North America. But they have all of that seamless system figured out. These little buses that feed to something like this, like a tram, and people are able to move around very quickly.
You just connect easily with one ticket.
And when you have the service that comes, the tram comes every 90 seconds.
Oh, my goodness.
90 seconds.
Wow, then you're not waiting at all. You don't need to think about, will I get the thing
one, get onto the other one, you're there.
And next image, if you want to catch a train, this is a high-speed train in China, which I think did 400 kilometers an hour.
Yes.
Between city stuff.
Yes, not going to be realistic here
not
for
the
the next
island,
time
no,
of year.
but if you imagine, Calgary across to Montreal.
Yeah, there's one visionary who said, let's do it from here to Vancouver, let's go all the way through. I don't know what Cortez Island would think about this as it goes over top of them or through them or whatever. But if you had a high-speed train that went through the Sunshine Coast back down to there, to Vancouver that way, then you could be there in half an hour without any problems.
Who knows?
It's doable.
Let's stay here on Vancouver Island. We have, so here's another, by the way, another monorail, right?
Yes.
Another way of looking at it, and we have the ENN Railway. We have that great corridor.
The corridor is there.
Which waiting for something to happen. So what about, there's the corridor of the ENN Railway, and one idea is that we make it a cycling corridor.
That's a great idea, and that's something you want to do, and I'm opposed to it, but there we are.
And there's another idea to make it a corridor for monorail.
Yes. So there was a fellow that spoke to me about this idea.
Yes.
He worked on the system in Disneyland.
Okay.
He said, seriously, Ian, this is a vision to go from Nanaimo to Victoria and do it in an hour or less, 45 minutes, with a monorail using that corridor. And I said, that's great. Where the money would come from, how that would be possible, I don't know. So I'm going to give you a stat. I think it's a stat. I did some rough on the back of a handkerchief kind of how much money do we spend in transportation here on Vancouver Island and the islands? Yeah. How much do we as individuals, I'm not talking about governments, that's a whole other order, we spend about $5 billion a year. Collectively.
Wow.
And then governments, probably the same amount. So if we were to redirect that money into public transit, into that monorail, if we were to have that kind of vision, then I could see we could have the cycling, walking trails as the railway, and we could get to Victoria quickly, and it would make a fantastic island.
And with this way, you can have the bicycles underneath as well.
Right. So it's a win-win.
Yeah.
Right now, we have a dilapidated, very antiquated, needs to be greatly updated railway. At least it's the corridor. I know the federal government and the provincial government keep on saying, oh yeah, that's a good idea, and they do nothing about it. If we did, at least in an interim, particularly from the western communities into Victoria, that's extremely busy, and they keep on putting in lots of money for highways and bridges there. If they were to put that into that, then it would be an excellent
So one of the dilemmas is the Malahat has 30,000 cars a day going up it. A train like this maybe will take, way smaller number. So you might be getting 1,000, 2,000 passengers off. You've still got 28,000 cars. So, maybe high-speed buses are needed, or decent buses on that as well. So there's other kinds of transport. We have to talk about trucking also. This is fully electric truck, Staples. There's no really big ones yet. I'll come to the big ones in a minute. So what about getting goods around, and how do we transport our goods? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, we have water. And water is the most efficient way of transporting goods.
Right.
So we can use that. How do we then go intermodal again to go from container ship onto a truck? Well, trucks do that really well, so do trains. If we have the train, which right now we're bringing propane, which is a very dangerous liquid as it's transported. If we can keep that in a more safe modalities, and passengers as well, but if we can get some of those goods moved onto trucks like that are electric, or even better, and I know you've got an idea there too, which is you have overhead wires.
Well, that's the next one coming up.
There.
This is Scania, the Swedish trucking company, who already installed a full electric highway. I picture but trucks need to go into all our small communities. They've got to get into the Cranbrooks and the Revelstokes and then the Port Hardys, and they've got to get to Tofino. And I just don't see it happening, electrifying all the roads. I'm hoping that the range of electric trucks will increase.
That would be great, and maybe what they could do is be on their own battery system with their own solar panels, whatnot, when they're off the main highways, and then when they get on the highways, then they can use this kind of system to charge their batteries.
Well, you certainly need to cover the roof with solar to recharge a bit. I was with the Toyota Prius, putting a solar panel on the roof of the Prius.
Yes.
Gives 10% of the electricity needed. So it's a contribution. Scania, the trucking company, is thinking to the future, and this image is a future electric truck recharging from electric wires in the roadway.
With panels, solar panels on the roadway, why not do that too?
Well, there's two separate things. The source of the power is one thing, but actually, as they drive along, they're recharging along a certain section of road as they drive.
Which is great. And if the road itself, particularly the bicycle paths next door to those roads, if they can be absorbing solar energy, because we already take this huge footprint to distribute people and goods. If we can use that, if we can take that footprint and create the electricity that can then charge those vehicles.
Yeah, I know France is laying some solar roads and a solar bike lane in Holland, but it's got to be twice as expensive as having regular solar on a roof. Why would you not put solar in the cheapest place and then take the electricity to put onto the road?
Yep, all kinds of different possibilities, but the fact is you've already got the infrastructure there.
Yeah. So then we look about shipping and ferries. This is the world's first fully electric car ferry. It's running in Norway on a 20-minute run, 10 minutes each end to recharge, and then it recharges at night. So BC Ferries could be using these things more?
They have a cable ferry right now going over to Denman Island.
And that's electric?
No, that's the sad thing.
How are they powering the cable?
They have a diesel engine on that.
Well, they could easily do that electric. Your hands are so operatically expressive.
What is wrong with this picture? Why have polluting diesel?
Yeah.
Why keep fossil fuel when it's very possible to electrify that?
Well, I think this was the German engineering company Siemens that worked with the Norwegian. Norway just put the contract out saying, we got this ferry, we got to replace it. What's the best way we can do it? So BC Hydro could do the same.
Absolutely.
Then we come to flying, a bit more challenging.
Way more challenging.
The image is not coming up for a second. Let me get my flying image. Relatively. Anyway, the Solar Impulse.
Yep, just flew over the Pacific Ocean.
But it only takes one passenger.
Yes, it's a bit of a problem. There are other ways of doing that.
Yeah.
It's one area that it's going to be the hardest for us to move away from fossil fuels.
There we are. That's
but
the
if you
Solar
think,
Impulse.
what percentage of fossil fuels go into aviation?
It's about 2%.
It's very small. If we could have only 2%, then we're going to be better. That's a great idea, and we've got some potential for that. Potential is a bit of a pun.
And we've got to remember that when the Wright brothers did their first plane, that only took one passenger as well. And look how the technology evolved.
Yes, exactly.
I'm hoping that the problem is the weight of the batteries. They're just heavy. And you don't want heavy when you're flying, right?
Exactly.
So to the other, from the sublime to the almost ridiculous, this is electronic Segway.
Yes.
I just share this image because it's very futuristic. And we want to, this is the personal little travel bubble.
Well, I wasn't sure it looked like a helmet at first, but what you've got there is something that's weatherproof.
It is weatherproof. This weather's good.
And people don't want to get wet. I've go into a grocery store dripping wet. Of course, I'm dry inside. It's just all my gear that's wet. People say, "Oh, you're out there in that weather," and I say, "Well, it's the same water that comes onto you when you're showering."
And to you and I, that maybe seem futuristic, but younger people are going to be finding this as normal as a way to get around.
And speaking of younger people, when you look at polls, who wants what it is that you're talking about? Well, older people are looking at retiring, and they're not going to be able to get around in their own car. They're not going to be able to drive, whatever. But it's the younger people that yearn to have what it is that you and I are talking about today.
Yeah. So my final image here is the big picture. What does this image tell you in regard to our transportation discussion?
So, it's
one small, tiny planet, right?
let's get some perspective is what you're
Yeah.
saying. The perspective is that we need to move goods and we need to move people around. That's what transportation is all about.
Yeah.
We can do it in the least possible way, which is what we're doing right now with cars, which take a lot of space,
Yes.
pollute the air, separate us, alienate us from one another, make us scared.
Yeah.
Or we can do it intelligently, more as Europe and other parts of the world are doing it with multimodal ways,
Yeah.
trains and trams and buses and dedicated walking paths,
Yeah.
dedicated cycling paths that all work together
Yeah.
with high density corridors
Yes.
of transportation where people live and work near there, can easily get onto
Yeah.
that, go to where they need to go, or we can continue to destroy ourselves.
So
and our
basically what
budgets.
you're saying is that when we see this image of the planet, everyone I know we know we got to look after it.
It's only one planet, the
And we
only one we've
can
got.
do our transportation in a way that is in harmony with our planet. Is that fundamentally what you're telling us?
I think that we can do it way better than what
Yeah.
we're doing. The
Yeah.
planet right now can't afford what we're doing.
Yeah.
And we can't afford what we're doing.
So change is coming.
It is coming, and we can either embrace it
Yeah.
or we can resist it.
Well, this has been great, Ian. Thanks for your vision, your contribution to Nanaimo and to the whole region in Vancouver Island.
Okay, you're welcome.
We'll have to meet again. This has been Change the World. My name is Guy Dauncey. My contribution has been a novel that I wrote set 20 years in the future called Journey to the Future that puts all these ideas into a 4-day visit to Vancouver in the year 2032. If you want more great discussions like this, tune in next week, and thanks for watching. Bye-bye.